The river sang, louder than drums on market day, as if it too felt the electricity in the dawn air over Izayama. In that village, the trees whispered secrets to the moon, and next to the shrine on the mountain, something ancient was stirring. Every 10 years, the spirits of the mountain sent a sign, a white dove crossing the river at dawn, circling the shrine 3 times. It meant they had spoken, they had chosen, and the chosen good girls, those untouched and wise-kissed by destiny, became the sacred brides. This year, the dove came. At dawn, silver light kissed the water. A bird glided across the glassy river, then hovered above the shrine, wings outstretched as if in prayer, circling slowly, solemnly, exactly 3 times. Then it landed, soft as dew, on the shoulder of a girl. That girl was Sua. People say destiny moves in hushes, not fanfare. This was one of those moments. 17 years old, quiet as sunrise, graceful like a river's current, skin like steamed cocoa butter, eyes like polished obsidian, deep and reflective. She walked with the innocence of new rain drops brushing palm fronds. When she appeared at the edge of the shrine circle, the villagers hushed. Even the children bowed. The chief elder breathed. The spirits have chosen well. Sua wore a white wrapper stitched with gold thread, simple but glowing, cowrie shells braided into her hair. She held her chin high, shoulders steady, but inside her heart trembled. She was beautiful in that sacred, untouchable way children speak of king's daughters, but her mind clung to one forbidden name, Jabari. Jabari. He was the hunter's son, wild, lithe, reckless, with eyes the color of storm clouds and muscles forged in the forest. His arrows flew straight. His laughter was fire. One evening, beneath trembling palms, he kissed Sua where no spirits could see. He kissed her slowly, with hunger. She didn't pull back, and in that instant, she felt alive. They met in secret, barefoot in long grass, hands entwined beneath banana leaves, breaths quick like startled birds. He showed her the world beyond whispered prayers and shrine chants. She showed him her fears, and in their chaos, something fierce flickered. Now, chosen by the spirits, Sua was forbidden from ever touching a man. She would become sacred, untouchable, a living vessel of divine will. Goats would be fed in her name. Prayers would be taught to children using her memory. She would no longer be a girl with desires, but a symbol, pure, holy, distant. The fire she'd lit with Jabari still burned, and he wasn't ready to let her go. On the morning of the ceremony, drums whispered from the boughs above, voices hummed sacred hymns. Bees buzzed lazily near the marigolds. The sky glowed opal. The villagers gathered around the shrine on the mountain's slope. The air felt thick with expectation, dust motes shimmering in the beams of early sun. Elders stood in a circle, chanting an incantation beneath the ancient baobab that guarded the shrine. Young women dressed in red and white, weaving baskets of hummingbird feathers and incense, circled Sua, weaving prayer around her skin. Sua finally stepped forward, knees shaking, hands folded at her chest. The chief priest lifted his staff high, engraved with lion figures and ancestral masks. The tambourine beat thunder in his hands. His voice echoed, "Sua, daughter of Amma, chosen of the spirits, you will wear their truth on your body and your silence in your soul. You are now no longer of this world. You are spirit woman." A hush fell like cloth. The dove glided upward and vanished, silent wings dissolving into sky. Sua bowed her head, yet in her mind, her spirit rose in rebellion. In the crowd stood motionless shadow Jabari. He had slipped out before dawn, trailing behind her across the river's edge, hidden by banana leaves and forest mist. He watched as she passed the threshold of the shrine, as the priest spoke truth over her, as the crowd closed in, framing her in ceremonial light. His breath shuddered. He had every right to celebrate her distinction, but her face was pale, her eyes lost. Tonight he would climb the hill again. He would enter the shrine, risk everything. He would hold her, or break from the world that planned to steal her. The ceremony ended in silence. The villagers departed in ritual procession. Fireflies began to carry the last of the day's glow. Lanterns flickered, and the mountain wind began to hum again. But in the shrine's hush, two hearts beat in rhythm. Sua, chosen by spirits. Jabari, her forbidden flame. They were tethered, one to the stars and public worship, the other to dusk's final secret breath. Sua dared to look behind her, but the priests and incense veiled her. She saw only flickers of movement before the path closed. Jabari stayed hidden. He would not wait long. That night, under the great moon, drums echoed again, this time in the forest behind the shrine. Barefoot steps crunched on dry leaves. The wind carried whispers of her name. Sua sat on the altar stone, breath shallow, robe glowing silver in moonlight. The priests had gone. The shrine was empty, but love was waiting. Jabari stepped into the candle haze, voice low, touch certain. He knelt before her, placing a scarlet rose in her lap. "Sua," he murmured, "the spirits took your body, but your soul still breathes beneath the moon. Let me hold what no one else can." Tears lingered in her eyes as she reached for him. They breathed together, breath of orchids, of stolen figs, of longing older than ancestors. Their lips met in silence beneath firelit palm leaves. No bird sang, no wind blew. Only secrets passed between them, a sacred promise that neither dared whisper beyond that rooted stone. When they pulled apart, breathing heavy, dawn light brushing their faces, they heard voices, footsteps, girls gasping, the priest staff clicking on stones. They fled, but as they tried to escape, the mountain wren swooped between them, her wings beating them apart. A voice broke the hush. "They have broken the sacred rule." The ceremony's blessing turned brittle. The birds fled. The forest held its breath. Sua and Jabari froze, their bodies still tangled, their love strong. But the world had shifted. The spirits were stirring. And in Iziyama, destiny now waited, not in ritual, not in incense alone, but in truth's breaking, and in the fire-ready hearts that dared to love in the face of eternity. The sun rose like a quiet witness. Golden light poured through the thick palm leaves of Iziyama, spilling over rooftops, casting long shadows on the clay roads. But the villagers were already gathered in silence. Today was not just another sunrise. Today, the spirits were waiting. Inside her family hut, Sua stood still as the elder women wrapped her body in sacred white cloth embroidered with golden threads. Her chest was bare except for the string of polished cowrie shells that circled her like the river surrounds an island. River pearls nestled in her thick, braided hair. Her feet were washed in warm palm milk, her skin anointed with oil from the sacred tree. She looked like a goddess, but her heart thundered like a frightened drum. Outside, drums began to echo low and slow, like the heartbeat of the earth. Elders lined up in ceremonial cloth, and the high priest, old as the hills themselves, held the carved staff of Anitu, the spirit mother. With a single nod, the procession began. Sua walked at the center, eyes cast down, silent as tradition demanded. No one was allowed to speak to her, not her mother, not her sisters, not even the aunt who raised her from birth. They were walking her to the sacred hills, where only chosen girls went, where only few ever returned. High above the village, past the mango groves and the river shrine, lay the stone path that led into the sacred hills, dense, tangled, and ancient. It was where the gods were said to whisper through tree bark and weep through the wind. And now it was to be her home, but not just hers. From deep in the underbrush, hidden beneath the scent of moss and bark, a shadow moved. Jabari, dressed in cloth dyed with forest ash, his spear tucked on his back. He crept like a spirit through the trees. He'd waited all night, far beyond the village fire, knowing the path the elders would take. He saw her, his Sua, surrounded by men who had no love for her. Only duty, only ritual. His teeth clenched. He didn't care if the gods themselves descended. She was his. Their love was not something even the ancestors could erase. "I will not let them take her from me," he whispered to the leaves. The procession continued, vanishing into the forest like mist. The sun dipped behind the clouds, and the air grew cold. The shrine on the sacred hill was carved into the rock itself, a half-moon structure guarded by stone faces of the old gods. The altar inside was shaped from red clay and obsidian, and beside it burned the spirit fire, a blue flame that had never died, passed on from keeper to keeper for generations. Sua sat in the center, Alone. The high priest had told her that the spirits would come to her tonight, through dreams, through smoke, through breath, that she must not fear them, that her body now belonged to the gods. Her womb would be blessed. Her voice would carry messages from the beyond. But she felt no holiness in the air, only a deep ache. She had left Jabari behind, or so she thought. Jabari had waited until twilight, hidden behind a twisted fig tree. He watched as the priests exited the shrine, their chants fading into the dark. He moved swiftly, barefoot, every muscle taut with tension. Inside the shrine, Sua was crying, kneeling in front of the altar. She tried to be strong, but her shoulders shook. Her back rose and fell with each silent sob. The spirit fire crackled behind her, casting her shadow onto the altar stone. He stepped inside, as quiet as the wind. "Sua," he whispered. She froze, turned, her breath caught in her throat. "Jabari." She stood quickly, unsure whether to run or leap into his arms. "You shouldn't be here. If they find you, I don't care." His voice was low, steady. "You belong with me, not with spirits who demand your body but won't know your heart." Tears shimmered in her eyes. "I tried to forget," she said. "I tried to give myself to the gods, but I can't. My heart, it still burns for you." And that was enough. He crossed the shrine floor in 3 steps and pulled her into his arms. Their foreheads touched. Their breaths mingled. Around them, the spirit fire flickered wildly, as if the gods themselves stirred in their sleep. "I will take you away from here," Jabari whispered. "We can run before the sun rises. Leave the village, the rituals, the chains of this fate. I have food, weapons, a path through the western ridge." Sua trembled in his arms. "But if I leave," she whispered, "will the spirits curse us?" Jabari's eyes darkened. "Let them try." Their lips met in a kiss so full of longing it broke the silence of centuries. Their hands found each other like river meeting sea. Around them, the carved eyes of old gods watched in silence, unmoving but not unfeeling. They didn't know it was the last time they'd ever hold each other without the world watching. By dawn, the air shifted. The wind returned, only howled now, as if warning something unseen. Outside the shrine, one of the junior priests returned early to check the altar flame. He heard a sound, a gasp, a whisper, a heartbeat too loud. He peered through the crack in the shrine's stone door, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Sua, not alone, and not untouched. He fled, wild-eyed, back to the elders. His voice broke as he spoke. "She is not alone. A man is in the shrine." Chaos followed. The drums sounded too early. The priests rushed back up the hill. The head priest's face darkened like a storm cloud. He raised the sacred staff and called upon the spirits with a fury that turned birds from the trees. Inside the shrine, Sua and Jabari had just pulled apart. They heard the noise, the chanting, the footsteps. Jabari's hand went to his spear. Sua shook her head. "They'll kill you." He kissed her forehead. "Let them try." But outside the shrine, something else had awakened. The flame on the altar pulsed blue and red. The carved statues wept, and in the wind a voice whispered, "She was chosen, and now the price must be paid." The morning sun had not yet touched the village when the earth began to tremble. At first, it was subtle. Clay pots rattled on shelves, dust stirred in corners, chickens fluttered in their pens. But within minutes, it grew louder, deeper, the kind of sound that rose from the belly of the world, the sound of fury. It wasn't thunder. It was something older, wiser, angry. The river, usually calm and whispering, began to churn violently. Its waters shifted direction, running backward, fighting against the current as if fleeing from something unseen. Birds took to the sky in spirals, shrieking. Goats bleated wildly. Dogs howled and hid beneath huts. And then smoke, thick and dark, curling from the peak of the sacred mountain, the place where no man dared go. It painted the sky with warning. At the village gates, the chief priest fell to his knees, clutching his chest as if stabbed by air alone. His eyes rolled back, and his voice rose like a drumbeat from the underworld. "The spirits are angry." Panic surged through Aboma like wildfire. Mothers grabbed their children. Elders clutched charms and spat prayers. Men ran toward the sacred hills, but none dared step too close. Atop the shrine, inside the ancient sanctuary where no eyes had been allowed, Sua awoke with a cry. The altar stone beside her was cracked, clean down the middle, glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. Wind swirled inside the sealed chamber, though no windows were open. The spirits had seen, and they were not silent anymore. Jabari stirred beside her, his arm protectively around her waist. "What is happening?" he whispered. Sua, eyes wide with horror, clutched her heart. "We've broken something sacred." From the valley below, voices rose in chaos. That afternoon, the clouds thickened until the village lay in darkness. Black clouds crawled across the sky, swallowing the sun. But the rain never came. The land begged for water, but the heavens held it hostage. Goats gave birth to stillborns. The midwife's hands trembled with each lifeless kid. Babies throughout the village cried and screamed without cause, eyes rolling in fear, sensing something no adult could see. Then, as the bells of dusk rang, the visions came. First to Elder Baco, then to the others, then to everyone. A great humming filled the air like thousands of bees made of thunder. People fell to their knees as smoke rose from the central fire pit, twisting into shapes. Clear, undeniable. Sua, in white, arms around Jabari's neck, their faces close, their bodies touching. Inside the sacred shrine, gasps, screams, cries of betrayal. She defiled the choosing. She spat on the spirits. She lied to the gods. The elders rushed to the hills, spears in hand, red cloths tied around their heads to ward off evil. When they reached the shrine, they found the pair still inside, clutching each other, afraid, but unrepentant. Jabari tried to protect her with his arms. "We meant no harm," he pleaded. Elder Baco, face like stone, raised his carved staff. "You meant nothing but destruction. You have brought curse upon us." They dragged Sua and Jabari down the mountain like animals. Through the village, villagers shouted and wept. Mothers averted their children's eyes. Girls who once admired Sua now spat at her name. Men who once dreamed of her now looked at her with disgust. Still she held her head high, though her eyes burned with shame. Jabari had bruises blooming along his chest, a cut above his eye. Still, he limped beside her, refusing to cry out. If she was going to the fire, he would burn with her. In the village square, a ring of torches was lit as the villagers gathered. Chief Elder Baco stood before them all, face hard as stone. He raised his arms for silence. "The punishment for deceiving the spirits," he boomed, "is death." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "But," he continued, "we are not the final voice. The spirits themselves shall judge." 2 sacred ropes were brought forward, made of twisted fig and bark. The lovers were tied to the talking tree, a massive baobab said to be the gate between the mortal and the divine. It was where the ancestors whispered and spirits passed judgment. They were bound together, back to back, hands tied above their heads. Elder Baco stepped forward, whispering an incantation as he pressed a charm into the bark. "If the spirits want mercy, they will send it. If not—" He did not finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The villagers slowly backed away. The square fell silent. The wind circled. The tree groaned. And the spirits began to speak. Night fell like a velvet curtain, thick with dread. No moon. No stars. Only the whispers of the wind, circling like unseen watchers. Sua and Jabari were tied back to back at the base of the talking tree, the oldest spirit tree in all of Izayama. Its bark was scorched black by lightning. Its roots twisted above the ground like fingers clawing toward the sky. It was said the gods spoke through it when mortals dared offend them. Now 2 lovers, naked in truth and bound in fate, waited for judgment. Smoke began to rise. It didn't come from fire. It came from the tree. A silver mist poured from its hollow trunk, swirling around their feet, slithering up their spines, winding into their mouths like breath stolen from another world. Sua gasped. Jabari's head dropped forward, eyes rolling white. Then the wind howled. A cry that wasn't wind at all, but voices. Hundreds of them. Male, female, young, old, echoing and overlapping. She was ours. He defiled the chosen. They lied under moonlight. They burned before the blessing. The villagers, hidden in the shadows at the edge of the square, fell to their knees in terror. Mothers clutched babies. Elders trembled. Even the warriors did not move. This was no ordinary punishment. The spirits were not just angry, they were present. Then the smoke thickened and shaped itself. A face formed in the air, then a body, then another. Translucent figures stepped from the mist, towering and tall, cloaked in feathers and beads, with empty eyes that glowed like dying suns. Spirits. One by one, they floated around the lovers, examining them like prey before a divine hunt. A female spirit leaned in close to Sua, brushing her cheek with fingers made of air and ash. "Why did you lie?" it whispered, voice like cracking ice. Sua, shaking, tears pouring down her face, whispered back, "I didn't want to lose him." The spirit tilted its head. "You were ours. You had been chosen." Another voice boomed from above, deep, male, and furious. "She took what was sacred and made it flesh. She broke the covenant." But then another voice, a softer one, rose from within the smoke. "She loved," it said. The spirits paused, and then argued. For the first time in Izayama's history, the spirits disagreed. Meanwhile, Jabari, still bound, struggled against his ropes, not from fear, but from anger. "If I must burn," he growled toward the sky, "then burn me, but do not touch her." The spirits turned their gaze. "You knew she was not yours, and yet you came." "I would come again," he spat. "I will cross death to keep her." A silence fell, the kind that feels like the world inhaling just once before it screams. Then the smoke around Jabari thickened. It entered his skin. His veins pulsed with black light. Sua screamed, but the spirits held her still. Jabari's back arched. His eyes turned red, then gold, then pitch black. When he spoke, his voice was layered, his own and something older. "I offer myself," he said. "Take my life. Let her live." One of the spirits whispered, "Would you die for lust?" He shook his head. "No, for love." Then the talking tree trembled. A crack split its trunk. Light, pure, white, blinding, shot out of the tree's center, blasting into the sky. From that light emerged a final spirit, taller than the others, cloaked in woven fire and crowned with bone. Its eyes saw centuries. The ancient, the villagers wept when it spoke. She was not the first to lie. She was only the first to stay. The ancient turned to the others. "Test their hearts. But do not forget, mortals were made to love." It turned to Jabari. "Would you walk into the mountain for her?" "Yes." "To never return?" "Yes." It turned to Sua. "Would you live without him, knowing he gave his life to spare yours?" Sua's voice cracked. "No, I'd rather go with him." And in that moment, the wind returned. Warm, fast, lifting skirts and rattling drums. The spirits dissolved like smoke in sunlight. Only the ancient remained, and it smiled. At dawn, the villagers returned to the square. They found the ropes gone, the talking tree untouched, and the two lovers missing. But where they had been tied, two vines grew, one strong and thick, the other delicate and flowering, twined together at the root. The chief elder wept. "The spirits have taken them." But the old blind woman who lived by the river just laughed. "No," she whispered. "They've been reborn.